So, to the surprise of no one, I'm a big fan of spooky stuff, and media that I'm nostalgic about, including bizarrely edgy kid shows from the 2000s and 2010s. What's really interesting about this era is how its shows weren't afraid to mix supernatural mystery and darker themes into what was supposedly kids' TV. Some shows of this ilk went a little too far in this respect and became unnerving, but I remembered a couple of programs that seemed to try to find a good balance of spookiness and fun a while back. Dead Gorgeous and Paradise Cafe. Both shows focus on ghosts in their own unique way, but I feel more attached to one compared to the other. But, am I judging things too harshly from my memory? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
Life and death are not so far apart.
Dead Gorgeous was a British-Australian television programme that aired for one series in 2010. The show centres around three sisters, Rebecca, Sophie and Hazel Ainsworth, who died in a carriage accident 150 years before the show's events. Disappointed by life's unfairness, Rebecca, the eldest sister, makes an application for her and her sisters to have another chance at life. However, the Ghost Council take 150 years to approve their application, which does seem to be the bureaucratic standard. Upon their return, the sisters find that their family home has now been turned into a private boarding school, and that they must live as living ghosts, undead beings who can be seen by the living but have powers such as possession, levitation, and walking through walls. If they get caught as being members of the undead, then no more new life, which of course means that they have to reveal themselves to their new friend Jonathan by episode 2, and are forgiven thanks to a loophole. Rebecca seems to be much more focused on normal teenagery things like finding a suitor in her classmate David, and generally fitting in. Hazel, the youngest, takes a shine to modern sciences and technology. Sophie, the middle sister, would much rather stick to her way of life while she was alive, and naturally, she is the sister that takes the longest to adjust to their existence as living ghosts. The show follows the sisters as they try to navigate their new lives as 21st century students. They're assisted by their eccentric ghost guardian Agatha, and various other ghosts as they struggle to adjust to their new way of living. Or unliving, I suppose.
And if anyone gets in your way, you let me know. I have a two-handed axe that can split heads with ease!
Girl, what the fuck is he talking about?
I remember really liking the aesthetic of the series, much more than the other show that I will be discussing in this video. I've never been able to forget the theme song for some reason, and often found myself humming it over the years. The fact that the show has stuck with me for so long made the discovery that it only ran for one series come as quite the surprise. I also don't know anyone in person who remembers this show. It's really a shame because it has a lot of interesting characters and some genuinely funny dialogue.
You do know that ghosts and gold don't mix.
Says the woman who wears lime and purple.
Dead Gorgeous is pretty much your standard kids fantasy drama series from around the same era, with just a very quirky and macabre premise, one that particularly appeals to my spooky sensibilities. The show is full of both sweet and sad moments, and I did enjoy rewatching it. Paradise Cafe was a British-New Zealand television programme that lasted for 2 series from 2009 to 2011. It's set on Paradise Island, where an evil spirit named Ragnar was trapped in a coral prison hundreds of years before the events of the series, the seal of which the main characters accidentally open in episode 1. Basically, siblings Megan and Robbo moved to Paradise Island with their dad to open up a cafe, hence the title of the show. In Series 1, they're joined by their friends Ty, Abby, and Chloe. Throughout Series 1, the characters are faced with a new sea ghost each episode. Sea ghosts being ghosts that died at sea or on the island, that were trapped in the coral prison as well. The show features typical haunting tropes, like ethereal voices, poltergeist activity, and well, just showing up. They can appear as normal people or be invisible, but when exposed to or viewed through a body of water, they appear in their true ghostly form. This aspect of the show always stuck with me too, as the sea ghosts have a deathly bluish-grey appearance with black veins and mould. Not all of the ghosts are malicious, but the really memorable ones are the ones working for Ragnar. The Chloe ghost arc was another standout moment for me. In episode 6 of series 1, Megan uses water-coated snorkel goggles to look for ghosts, and realises that Chloe is one. It is then revealed to everyone else in episode 11 when Chloe helps to save Ty from a shark. This also happens to be my favourite episode, by the way. While the arc really engrossed me when I originally watched the series, upon my rewatch it should have been fairly obvious from the beginning that Chloe was a ghost. For one, there's her 1950s dress sense, and she appears confused at modern speech, much like the Ainsworth sisters.
I've got 200,000 hits. My gosh, when did that happen? Are you hurt?
To make a long story short, Chloe has been promised a human life if she helps Ragnar find the Seaborn, a warrior who Ragnar wants to use as a vessel, but also happens to be the only person who can defeat Ragnar. The series culminates in Ty being revealed as the Seaborn, and defeating Ragnar by sealing him back in his prison. However, Series 2 is when the show really takes a turn for the worse in my opinion. Series 1 ended with a cliffhanger suggesting Ragnar's return, but it's announced that this will not be the case at the beginning of Series 2. A new character, Natasha, even breaks the seal, but that only releases the sea ghosts. Speaking of sea ghosts, Chloe is forced to leave the island as her ghost form returns, although I wasn't aware that it had left since she didn't help Ragnar. I would understand if it occurred as soon as the seal broke, but she was looking ghostly right at the beginning of the episode. The characters are also all noticeably older despite only a few weeks passing in universe. The continuity is a bit messed up essentially. Instead of Ragnar, the main threat of Series 2 can be summed up as Natasha inviting the Ghost Trapper, or Boris Jensen, to expose the existence of ghosts on the island to the world, and kickstart her journalism career or something. Compared to a demonic force intent on destroying the world, it just seems quite low stakes, doesn't it? I remember not being the biggest fan of the second series for this reason. The series does end with Ty using a magic pendant to double seal the coral prison, but it all feels too little too late. Anyhow, Boris Jensen does have some funny lines himself.
But which one of us is the world-renowned authority on paranormal investigation, and recipient of a Daytime Television Award for Best Reality Show and/or Musical?
So, what's up with these shows? While very goofy, cheesy, and incredibly dated, I think that both Dead Gorgeous and Paradise Cafe have some good morals in the stories they try to tell. Dead Gorgeous tackles all the themes that the kind of show in its genre tries to tackle: identity, family, fitting in, adapting to change, and moving on. I find the way the show handles death to be very creative, as although the main characters are dead themselves, they have to learn to deal with the fact that, in their absence, the world has moved on without them. Dealing with topics like death and grief are so important for children, and it's good to present them in an earnest way that isn't scary. Paradise Cafe is more of an adventure series than a supernatural drama series, but it does focus on topics like friendship, trust, acceptance, and making the right choices even when it is very difficult to do so. The different ghosts arrive with their own personal problems that must be dealt with, and so embracing people's differences is also a major theme. I must say that I definitely prefer the effects in Dead Gorgeous over Paradise Cafe. The effects in Dead Gorgeous are much more subtle, mostly being transparency effects and rigging tricks to help serve the story and emphasize the ghost's powers. Paradise Cafe utilises much more CGI, which looks very campy and dated, and even made me burst out laughing at points. One is more playful and silly, whereas the other is a bit more atmospheric. Another thing that stood out to me in both series is the dialogue. There is a lot of cringe comedy in Dead Gorgeous, as it features a lot of old-timey speech from the sisters compared to their peers, leading to a lot of confusion on both sides. Paradise Cafe often uses very campy in-your-face dialogue, especially in respect to Ragnar, which made me cringe in a different way.
Give in, you seaborn creep! You cannot fight what is destined to be!
I find it very interesting that the aesthetics of these two series are so different, but they both stood out to me as a kid due to their similar supernatural themes. Dead Gorgeous has a sort of gothic vintage style given the Victorian characters, and the colour palette is very muted during ghost-heavy scenes. Paradise Cafe, on the other hand, has a very vibrant, colourful palette to match its silent setting, and while it should be obvious which aesthetic I prefer to returning viewers, I think Paradise Cafe's visual themes are cute and suit the series. Now, while Paradise Cafe received 2 series, Dead Gorgeous ended after only 1, which is an absolute travesty in my eyes. That show is full of untapped potential, and needs a well-made reboot. The main thing that annoys me about the second Paradise Cafe series is the discarding of characters like Ragnar and Chloe, when they played such significant roles in the first series, and there was a cliffhanger.
You did this for what?
Why not?
Why?
Why not?
Why though?
However, they did attempt to expand the series' mythology surrounding Ty's powers. All in all, I know this video is quite different from the ones I usually make, but I've had these series on my list for a while and wanted to bring more attention to them as I really haven't seen too much discussion about them in person or online. If you guys would like full-length analyses of episodes of either of these shows, or similar videos to this one, then please let me know in the comments. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time. Cause Polos is life, 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 Polos is life. Sleep all night and